Before we start, I would like to ask your help to do two things. First, tell a friend or two who you think might like the show. And second, please rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The more reviews the show gets, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Thank you, and now on to the show.
They make the trek out to Burning Man for a week and a day. After a lot of work, oh, there's a lot of play. Party, 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 drama, 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 bitch, bitch, bitch. Year after year, they come back to scratch that itch. They all say their lives have been changed. After many years, lives have been rearranged. That change is what this show is all about. You'll see the impact of Burning Man up and out. So sit back, relax, and cancel all your plans. These are the stories about the shadow of the man.
Hello, and welcome to the Shadow of the Man Show. I'm your host, Andy. Is it Baby New Year? No, it's that Andy. Today, our honored guest is Harley Dubois. Welcome and Happy New Year.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, this comes out January 1st.
Okay.
But we're recording this like a little before Thanksgiving, November. But
I was just making Thanksgiving plans before I came to this meeting.
yeah, we're gonna have a small Thanksgiving this year, only like 9 or 10. Last year, I think we had like 25 or something.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, I love to cook. That's like that's like my Super Bowl. You know, it's I spend like weeks, and I'm ordering like chestnuts from Amazon, and I get like dried chanterelles, and it's like stuffing and
I
stuff.
want to come to your house for Thanksgiving.
So we were talking a little bit before, and this is actually our second go around. This is the super rare, in fact, never happened before, like a redo of the interview because the last time we had some technical issues.
Yes.
This is going to be much better. So you lived in, was it 1907 Golden Gate, the infamous house in San Francisco where so many things happened. And did P Segal?
Yes.
Segal is the person who got you to go to Black Rock City. So what year was that? Was it 91, you think you said?
91 was my first year, but I helped Miss P. She did catering on the side to make money. And so I helped her make food for the Black Rock Desert for the zone trip in 1990. And we made this big, huge sphinx, literally a sphinx. It was cast out of fiberglass. Fiberglass? Yeah, I guess so. And we made it out of hummus.
Yeah.
And the only thing that happened for Burning Man in terms of anything that was organized was the Cacophany cocktail party, which happened right before the man burnt. And she was catering the food for it. And so she made a big, huge hummus sphinx. And I helped make that and cut up the pita bread and all these things that would keep in an arid environment, olives, lemon, etc. And I didn't go.
So wait, this was all made like beforehand, like in San Francisco and transported there?
Yeah, all made in 1907 Golden Gate Avenue. That's where it all happened back in those days.
It didn't like fall apart like on the trip up there or melt?
No. We made it the night before.
Uh-huh.
And remember, it was only 3 days back then. You basically showed up on Friday or Saturday morning at 4 a.m. or whatever. And you burnt the man on Saturday night.
Was it Saturday or Sunday night?
It was Saturday. Well, I think it was Saturday back then, but if it wasn't on the holiday, if it was on the holiday, then it was Sunday. I can't remember. It's so long ago, right?
Because when I first went in 96, I remember it burned on Sunday night.
There you go.
Yeah. Because then I think that later on they moved it to Saturday, and then the temple was Sunday.
That's right. You're right. It was on Labor Day weekend and it was on Sunday night. That's correct. But it only had to last a day, and it was in a cooler. So it made it. The hummus Sphinx made it. And I would argue we had the first theme camp. We wore sort of oh God, harem girl outfits. Miss P, Miss Dawn, and myself, and I was Miss Harley. And we wore these little outfits, and we had a carpet we threw in the ground, and we made pillows to match it so you could lie, luxuriate, on the ground and with these pillows, which was really the only thing anybody had. Nobody even had any shade in those days. And then on Sunday night, we would pull out the martini shakers um, and have the cocktail party, and people wore formal wear for that. I have a picture of Miss Dawn, Miss P, and myself. I'm in like a black bustier, and Miss P has her black feather boa before boas were outlawed, right? This is the good old days. This is 1991 was my first year.
Yeah.
And Miss Dawn was wearing some gorgeous outfit. I can't recall. And we're at the man, and there's nobody behind us. There's nobody there. Like my first
Well,
year was
91 was how many people?
91. I think there were about 200, 250 people. People argue with that. Nobody was counting.
Wow.
The first year we made the Hummus Sphinx was, I did not go, was 50 people. So a lot's changed since then.
I mean, even if everyone was spread out in a circle perfectly around, I mean, that would be just people would be spaced apart by,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's kind of funny because, as time goes by, these stories come up. And so my first year was 1991. Let's call it 250 people. And it was kind of like a fingernail shape. Like all of us kind of did a semicircle around the man that was out in front of us. And no one sort of went beyond that, but everybody camped back from that. But it was only 250 people. Um, and I had a little teeny backpacking pup tent that slept one. And in 1991, I put down my tent and I went out and did my things. And I came home that night to go to sleep. And there was a man that put his tent really close to mine, and he snored really, really loud. And the next year, he put his tent next to mine again. And I picked up my tent and I moved it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you said that like there's hardly any shade. I imagine there's probably wasn't too many, or if any, like RVs,
No.
right? I mean, I've heard even like generators or like electricity was probably slim to none or
Yeah.
anything.
Yes.
So
Um,
how did the DJs all have their strobe lights? And well, there were no DJs, right? I mean, there
There
was.
was no DJs. There was none of that at all. And I did drive up with Miss P and Miss Dawn and Danger Ranger and this guy, Andy Pector's RV. And that was the only generator, I believe, that was out there. And he had this big old RV. And I remember coming across, the Highway 30, was it 34, and seeing the Black Rock Desert for the first time as the sun was rising and being
Mm.
blown away by just how desolate it was. It took me many years to appreciate the desert, and now I really love the desert. But I grew up in the East Coast with lush greenery, so this is a very foreign environment for me. It was kind of like going to Mars
Well,
or
what
the
was your
moon.
feeling when you saw the expanse of desert coming? Was it kind of like, holy crap, like where are these people taking me?
Well, no, because I was fully invested in all the people already, right?
Uh,
Like Andy Pector was the foreigner to me, and he was the person driving the RV. But Miss P and I and Miss Dawn was my roommate, and Miss P was my mentor and the person who had 1907 Golden Gate Avenue. I think was probably in her name. I had an apartment in the floor below, but there was a secret and illegal spiral staircase that ran between my floor and her floor because this building had not been cared after for many years. It was a beautiful Edwardian um, flat on the top that was huge. And so many, many people lived. I don't know how many, seven, eight people lived up there. Then there was the roof where my boyfriend, John Caston, lived with, I think, three other people. Some of the art babies lived up there. The art babies were Kevin Evans, Sebastian, and Carrie, I believe, the people who wrote one of the three people who wrote the book, the Cacophony book. They were the art babies because they were in art school. And they lived on the top floor. And my recollections may be wrong, um, but there was about 10 people who lived and were fully committed to each other. We were part of the Cacophony Society. The Cacophony Society was fully entrenched at this point, and Michael and Louise Jermilowitz, who were at that point the people who were kind of running it, did not live with us, but they had keys to the house. And so I might go to bed at 10 and wake up at 2 and find a full-on event happening in my living room. Um, so it was quite the scene. So we were fully committed. So when we went out to the desert, I didn't feel like it was crazy. I just felt like it was another adventure.
Well,
Um,
plus you probably had seen like all these people like going and then coming back like more
yeah,
covered in dust and like these big smiles on their faces and it's like, and you gotta go. So like, how bad can it be?
exactly. Exactly. In fact, my boyfriend, John Caston, it doesn't handle the heat well. And he was like, "Oh, sweet pie, you don't go, it's gonna be hot and dusty." I'm like, "Okay, I won't go." Next year, I'm like, "Fuck that shit, I'm going." Like, I missed out on something that happened out there. Now, of course, the burn at Baker Beach was already a part of the Cacophony newsletter. Of course, this is before the internet. And there was a newsletter that was sent out every month, and Michael and Louise Jermilowitz would make it together,
The rough draft.
a rough draft.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a corner of the 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that said things like cacophony, and the Burning Man event on Baker Beach was listed there. And I was like, I'm doing really cool stuff with this organization. I'm uh, climbing the Bay Bridge. I am going through sewer walks, which is basically drain water walks, in waders and coming out in a ball gown for a sit-down dinner in a park. And I don't even know what part of the city I'm in. Like these things were much more interesting me than watching an edifice of a man burn on a beach. I'm like, not so much. But I always knew that the party was going to end up at our house, and it did. So I met everybody and I caught the vibe, missed the first year and got to the second year, 1991 on the desert.
Oh, yeah. So, well, one thing, note, because I know they keep talking about like climbing bridges, and I remember seeing one picture in the book where they're actually going up like the cables. Is that how they climbed the bridge? Like actually going up the suspension cables, or like climbing the tower?
We climbed the tower when I did it.
Yeah.
I think,
There's no way in hell I would climb the
well,
cable.
actually, through Illuminate the Arts, which is a wonderful artistic um, nonprofit in San Francisco,
Hmm.
Leo Villarreal partnered with Ben Davis and created the Bay Lights.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
and those opportunities, people did climb the cables. They
Well, that
did.
was legally, I'm sure, with the harnesses and everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, but to do it illegally, you had to you had to sneak in front of the fire department, which is right out there in the water. And I was actually applying to be a firefighter at that time.
Oh.
Yeah. And I became a firefighter. And I was like, "Oh, this is so foolish of me. I'm sneaking out in black, running with, I was the only woman, 9 other men. And we're all running out in front of the window of station 35, and scooting over to the tower and then climbing. I think John had a key. This is led by John Law. And so we got inside the tower just to get off the ground. And then once we were off the ground, we climbed up these really skinny ladders. They're not like your standard ladder size. They were like, I think maybe 10 inches. And they were metal and they were firm and they were sturdy, but they went up and up and up and up and up and up. And at one point, we had to swing our bodies out to the outside, like over the water,
Ooh.
come back in to the second lane because you have traffic that goes out on the lower level and comes
Mhm.
in on the upper level. We had to swing ourselves out come back in to get to the upper level so we can get up to the tower. And we got all the way up and we were so excited. It was so cool. And I was like, John, there's a video camera right there. And he goes, yeah, Harley, it's a fisheye lens. They can't see us. I was like, right. They're looking for big things out in the water. They're not looking for small things right up here underneath it. So then I started to climb down, and all of a sudden my nerves hit, and I
Yeah.
terrified. And I said, John, I can't do it. I can't do it. And he's like, Harley, you can totally do this. I must have, a fear of heights. He goes, no, you don't have a fear of heights. You have an unfamiliarity with heights. He said, do your right hand and your left foot, and then your left hand and your right foot, and just go down. And I did. And we made it all the way down. And we were so cool. Oh my God, we were so
Oh, I
cool. Until
imagine.
right in front of us, bam, 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 bam. These space, what are they called? The base jumpers with parachutes landed right in front of us.
What?
Yeah, base jumpers,
Was
they
this planned or just a
no,
circumstantial?
they were must have been climbing up the other side. Well, we were climbing up this side. They don't cross all the way over. So they must have gotten up there just after we left. And then they jumped and they landed
Really?
right in front of us. And I was like, never be arrogant, Harley. You were out cooled in like 2 minutes from your climb of the Bay Bridge by these base jumpers who just outcooled you. They looked at us, they packed up their parachutes and ran away.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible, the timing of that. Oh, yeah. No, but that takes nothing away from, like, I'm sure the endorphin rush, like after you like your first foot
It
sets the foot on the ground where you're just like, I did it.
I
I'm
know, I
not
know.
dead.
It's just a humility story. It's just a humility. Like never think
Well, no, that's perfect. That's awesome. Wow. So yeah, so that was 91. And yeah, so another thing, so about the Cacophony Society and the rough draft, so that's like back in the pre-internet days, that's how people would kind of know what to do, right? And that's kind of how they would attract people and new members, like because
Mhm.
this suicide society, right, was that, I mean, that was more just like kind of a small, close-knit group of people. Like they weren't like so welcoming to other people. And then that sort of passed on. And then the Cacophony Society came about, and they were like, "Well, we want to be more inclusive of people, right?"
Yes,
And so then they had like the newsletter, and then I guess you could be like a mailing list, or they also put it in like
yeah,
coffee shops and stuff like that.
exactly. All of that.
So
And they were very welcoming. Yeah.
yeah, so Larry first went to the beach with like was it Jerry James and a couple of people. I'm forgetting names now. But so it was like 86, right? So I think
Yeah.
he did that for like a couple of years before
He did
the
it.
company like found out about it, right?
Well,
And
no,
then put it
he
in
solicited Cacophony. He wanted more people. Larry
of the
always wanted
first
more
year.
people. No, not in the first year, the
Oh,
second year. The second
ah,
year, he wanted more people. So he did the second year, and then he wanted more people. And then he came um, to John and Michael, who were pretty much running. I mean, it's hard to say who's running, but but whatever.
hmm,
Cacophony, they were heavily engaged and
involved in leadership, like
yes. And Larry sought them out. And it was actually in my meeting, my living room, Miss P's living room. That's Miss P Segal's is my mentor and was the person who really had 1907 Golden Gate Avenue, which was the epicenter for Cacophony. And Larry garnered a meeting with Miss P, John Law, and Michael at like 11 p.m. in my in the
of
living room.
course,
And I was
normal
like
business
coming through it.
hours, right?
Yeah, I was coming through and going to bed, and I was like, oh, this looks like a heavy meeting, and I went upstairs and went to bed. And he was asking if we could please publish his event in the Rough Draft because he knew that that was the underground hip art scene in San Francisco. And of course, they said yes, and they did. And
What year
so
was that? Was that like
that was I think that was 1990, I'm sorry, 1988.
oh, okay.
And then when they did the burn in 1990, 1989. They went to do the burn on Baker Beach with it sounds like Cacophany
Mhm.
listed. And they went to the beach to do it. The cops stopped them because there were now too many people. And they said, this is illegal. You have, over, I think the cutoff was like 200 people or something. So it was somewhere between 200 and 300 people. So they refused to let it burn. So Larry and all put it in a parking lot of some friend who had a parking lot in San Francisco back when these things were like free space. Like the city had not blown up into the city it is today. You would never find
What
that
free
now, but
space? Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Now,
And so they left the man in this parking lot. And then they came back to 1907 Golden Gate Avenue to my home and Miss P's. And Kevin and Miss P and Miss Dawn had just gone to a wind uh, contest on the Black Rock Desert where people would make art that would blow in the wind. And whoever's art piece crossed the finish line first was the winner.
oh,
It only
wow.
happened once. It was done by Planet X. If anybody around that area, Planet X still exists. It's the only time the founder of Planet X ever did this wind festival. And so Miss P, Miss Dawn, and Kevin made a four-posted bed with um, fabric hanging off the four posters, which served as sails. And they didn't win, but they were introduced to the Black Rock Desert. And they came back and said, "We have to take it to the Black Rock Desert. That's where Burning Man has to happen. That's the perfect place for it. There's no place else." And Larry listened, and we all listened, and they went down to the parking lot to get the man, and it was chopped to smithereens. Someone had chopped it up. So they rebuilt the man, took it out to the desert, and that was 1990.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's just interesting to think about. Like, Larry wanted more people to come to Baker Beach, and he did, and then that got it kicked out of Baker Beach. Like, I just keep wondering, like, what would have happened if he had never gone to Michael and John Law, and if we just kind of, it was just sort of like an organic, like, oh, Baker Beach bonfire thing. Like, would it have ever have grown as large? Would it have just become like, well, I did it for 5 years and I got tired of it, and there never was a Burning
Yeah, I
Man.
mean, I think it very likely could have never turned into anything.
Mhm.
I'm sure Larry would have found something else interesting to do with himself because
Yeah.
um, the burning of the man, the symbolism of the man, and the burning of the man, and the way it brought people together, all the things that Larry craved in his life.
Hmm.
That's what he really wanted. I'm sure he would have manifested that in some other way. But yeah, it could have very, very easily never happened.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just interesting, like just the chain of events. Let's see. Oh yeah, Dan Miller, right? So Dan Miller was one of the roommates of Larry, and so I interviewed him his episode, and so he said that was like 1976 or something. There was some like Raku like camp out in like Petaluma or something that they both happened to be at, but they didn't know each other at the time. And I think he was saying, it was like, oh yeah, that was like the first time that Larry kind of like looked around and was like, people are camping and there's a bunch of fires, like, and they're all kind of like, this is an interesting thing. And then like years later, 1986, and he was just like, oh, things going on in his life. He's like, oh well, I'll make this man and drag it out to the beach. I mean, it's a longer story than that. And then it's like he gets put in the rough draft, and then all these people show up, and then there's also the Kevin Evans, at all, and everyone else. Like he went out to the Black Rock Desert like in 1989. He came back, and we're like, it's like, we have this great idea for a zone trip, where we can go out to the Black Rock Desert, we can bring our art, and we can burn it, and like, so it seems like it's this kind of
Yeah.
series of things kind of like come together, and then there's also was like desert site works and stuff that
Mhm.
was kind of similar things like happening out the desert at the same time. And like, so what everybody knows as Burning Man nowadays, it's like you look on Instagram, or people are like I'm putting that on my bucket list. It's like it kind of came around like organically, like over time, right?
Yes. And through the time period of where we were culturally, I've always really noticed how Burning Man definitely bounces off of our presidential administrations, definitely bounces off of our economic state, and the growth of a city or the growth of a human. It all feeds into itself. It all feeds in together to make this thing happen.
I mean, I think at some degree, people like to think at least it's like, oh, Burning Man, this is a thing that's separate, and it's like it's not connected to current politics or whatever. I mean, but definitely economically, I
Well,
mean,
actually, even the politics for sure. Like I found that the way Burning Man reacts to whoever our president is, it is an administration off. Like when Obama was in office, he was really going after volunteers not being treated properly and people being called to volunteer when they should be getting paid.
hmm
And I was really nervous that, the administration might shine a light on us because we were all, I mean, Burning Man would not have happened if it wasn't for volunteers. And volunteers is the wrong word, of course, because we're really just talking about people that are passionate to do something. Like I volunteered for, 7 to 10 years before I ever got paid, and so did everybody else. I mean, Larry was volunteering. We were all volunteering. So it came out of that. So is a volunteer the right word? But regardless, by the time Obama was in office, that was a thing.
hmm.
And we were just becoming a nonprofit at that point. And by the time we turned the nonprofit page, volunteers would be okay. But, we were swimming under that light. And the kind of light, the kind of uh, uh, spotlight we'd be given in Washington, D.C. was always subject to the interests of the president. So, whether you'd have to like do a research paper on it, but it's totally entwined. It's totally entwined. It's just that we're usually like 4 years behind whatever the emphasis is at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's funny because like nowadays people think, like in the play, it's like everything is like so immediate and right up to the moment. Like,
No, not when you're in the back end of it.
yeah.
On the back end of it, we're 4 and 6 years out. With regard to who's in office, just in the seats that affect us directly, the people that are um, the persons who are the Bureau of Land Management stewards of the Black Rock Desert.
hmm
We have a direct relationship with them all the time, and usually, if they ever come to like us, then they are relocated within a year or two.
hmm
If they don't like us, they seem to stick around.
Yeah.
But many an official who works for the Bureau of Land Management has tried to make their name off of trying to manage Burning Man because for some reason they think they can do it better than us, even though they don't quite understand what it is. And so they come in and they try to force us to do all these things. And it's one of our larger departments at Burning Man is our government affairs department,
hmm
because we're constantly managing or interfacing with and hoping to manage or help to manage the governmental influence that is being pushed upon us. And it's about five people's full-time job is to manage that.
Is it because I know like where I work, and I'm sure it's a pretty common thing in almost any organization. Is like whenever you have new leadership, in anything, that's like they have to kind of demonstrate. It's
Yes,
like, look, I'm doing something, and like I'm changing things. Like even
yes.
something that's like, oh, it's been established and around for decades, and it's like it's like this. Everything is all where you could cut has been cut. It's as efficient as possible. It's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel like a 20th fourth time. But here's somebody new, and it's like, and they have to.
The last time that happened on a significant level is when they wanted us to put up the barriers that you see. I think they're called a New Jersey barrier, the barriers that you see on freeways.
Ones
Around,
they fill with the
uh,
water, like those plastic ones.
no, not the plastic ones, the
Oh, the
concrete ones.
concrete ones.
Concrete ones. They wanted us to do our perimeter fence with those, which would make playa dunes. Like when the wind blew, we would have so much damage to the playa. Like the trash fence allows the dust to blow through and not create disruption to the playa. Like absolutely crazy idea, but they were insistent upon us and they wanted us to bring in garbage cans. That would ruin Burning Man. It would ruin Burning Man. And we had to fight really long and hard to keep these crazy things from happening. They seem like a no-brainer answer to somebody who doesn't know anything about what we're doing and the intricacies, but they're absolutely ludicrous to our culture and our steadfast commitment to being good stewards of the Black Rock Desert. They're just crazy ideas.
Yeah. Do you
You're
ever
right.
think about
Somebody
like
trying to
when
prove themselves.
yeah, do you ever think about like when you know someone new is coming in to be like, hey, let's give them a freebie. Like let's pull back on something that we normally do and just be like, we don't have a trash fence or something, just be it's like, what you need to do is build a
I
trash
wish
fence.
it was that simple. I wish it was that simple, but it's not.
Where it's like, since you're new here, we decided that we're not going to do this thing anymore. We're not going to have porta potties. It's like, what? You need to have them. Like, all right, good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds, maybe we'll try it in the future.
So I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. So another thing that more recent burners probably won't realize, like what we were talking about before, like there was no like amplified music. I mean, in the beginning, and so uh I have in my notes from our last one. So was it 1993 or 1994? Larry invited Turbo Ted.
Yeah.
It's like, so Turbo Ted did raves in San Francisco. So was that the
Yeah. So raves had just become a thing, and oftentimes they were done in churches, and everybody's on um, some kind of drug. And I think MDMA was just, ecstasy was just new on the horizon at that point. And so you run this church, and the rave scene was created. And Larry saw that as a place where younger people were gathering and thought, let's do it. Let's be part of what's happening right now. So he invited Turbo Ted to come out in 1995, and he did come out, and he brought his rave community with him, a couple hundred people for sure, and we put them half a mile um, upwind from us, from the people who were there for Burning Man itself. They weren't integrated at the point. They were two
Mhm.
separate things are coming together at Larry's invitation. And a lot of people loved both of these things. And we would drive our cars with people sitting on top of the cars between the two because there was really very little law enforcement, or we hadn't worked all this stuff out yet. We didn't know what was dangerous and what wasn't, other than, you know, we're all crazy. And so, but the sound of the rave music drove those of us that weren't interested in it crazy. So the next year, Turbo Ted said he'd like to come back, and Larry, and I don't know who it was, probably John and Larry, maybe Michael, I don't know, decided to put it a mile downwind of us. And a mile proved to be too far. The downwind part was good because I never heard the music, and I was already involved in organization. Like I was working my ass off by this point in 1996. Um, and I was creating the infrastructure that is what we all commonly experience as Burning Man now, or you have information resources, and you know where the streets are, and you can find a camp. And I was creating all that. And so like I didn't have time for rave, and it wasn't my kind of music anyway. But it was a mile downwind, and it was going crazy, off the hooks. There were not enough porta potties down there. Um, and Turbo Ted disappeared. So now there's no leadership down there at all. And I was standing at the ranger station when somebody drove up in a van with garbage bags full of human feces and said, "Here's your lack of porta potties, dude. Like, we have no porta potties down there." And that was
Oh,
from Turbo Ted's camp. And then, of course, uh, there was the person who got super high and ran over two or three tents in the
yeah.
really early in the morning and that whole story. Um, so no, they were not aligned or committed at all to each other. We found a lot of common ground by 1997. It was kind of a done deal. It's a Harley's 3-year rule, right? The first year kind of sucks. Second year, you learn a lot, and the third year it gets integrated. And so by the third year, 1997, it was pretty that kind of music and
Mhm.
what the inception of this underground hipster art scene in San Francisco had become one, they'd become entwined. And we were starting to get people from, around the country to come to the event. And so it was no longer the San Francisco hipsters with the San Francisco ravers. It's become something larger than that
Yeah.
by 1997.
So in terms of like Burning Man's evolution and like the evolution of the organization and stuff. So in 1990, it was like 80 people just kind of caravanning out and just kind of loosey goosey, like we're going camping in the desert,
Yep.
right? But like, yeah. So I mean, did it kind of like what almost exponentially grew? Like each year was kind of like doubled and
Oh, it
doubled and
doubled every
doubled.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. So like by the time you got there in like in 91, I mean, so you got there right like when it was starting to grow.
Right when it started to need a little bit of infrastructure,
Yeah.
right
So
when
how
it
did that
started.
infrastructure grow? I mean, was it just kind of organic? Like who came together?
Um, I would say a lot of it was me. There were a couple of other natural born organizers like Nancy Denny Phelps, who now lives in Europe, who was a natural organizer, and she helped. And Miss P, uh, she was a caterer, and so she helped. Um, but I didn't realize it, but I had a natural ability to sort of see a need and get it done. I used to call myself a crack filler. My very first year on the playa in 1991, I was I was the person who remembered to bring coffee and lots of it. So I
So
kind of
people loved you. Yes, they would listen to you.
yeah, they certainly remembered my name. And by 1995, I saw John laying out the circle, which was center camp. In 1994 and 1993, I was a person who would drive out. We had you had a circle that was center camp. It was ill-defined. People didn't really respect it, hardly even knew it was there, but it was an open space. And we did try to get a cafe-like presence in the middle of it. But we basically had these two vector lines that went out, that spread out from center camp out into the Great Playa, and the man would be put in the middle so that people wouldn't camp by the man, which would be dangerous when it burnt, but also ugly to look at. And so I self-policed. I went out on my bicycle and would find people that camped overnight. And they'd be like, I don't want to move. I already set up all my stuff. And I'd be like, why don't you hop on my bike and go back to summer camp and look out? And they come back and they say, oh my God, you're right. I can't stay here. They realized that they weren't in a place that, was good for everybody. So I was always I just by nature doing that kind of thing. I started placement in 1995 because we needed to find that circle so people would know what that circle is, right? Like, why draw it if you're not going to enforce it? And it was for good. It is to make a central gathering space for people. 1997, I started Playa Info, which is a resource, just basically the information board I guarded from Dan Miller put up the information board, I think, even my first year in 1991, he put up, a sheet of plywood. And I guarded that because it was the only resource people had to find anything. There was nothing there. And then by 1997, I was like, we need a little bit more than an information board at this point. And so I started building that out, and placement was a thing. And then I started Greeters the same year, and Earth Guardians turned into a thing because we were on private land in 1997. And we were messing with the natural terrain and we needed to reestablish it. So this group of people out of Reno gathered and taught us how to get the right kind of seed to eradicate the road that we'd cut in on this private piece of property. And so the Earth Guardians were born. So a lot of stuff was born like 1997 to 1999 that I then managed. I cultivated and managed. Burning Man Information Radio is another one that came out then. Um, so yeah, so I made a lot of the infrastructure happen. It was all volunteers.
Yeah. I
I
just
was
remember like
volunteer.
in Coyote, I think it was in Coyote's book, there was a scene, I think it was in 96
Yeah.
when everyone was like burning everything down and you were standing in front of like
Yeah.
the lost and found or information
Yeah. I
thing,
was
like
like, don't burn this
vegematically like what
motherfucker down. No one's
happened?
going to know how to get home in the morning, like if you burn it down. But they knew me better than I knew myself. And as soon as I stepped off of the caterpillar or whatever I was standing on, they just burnt it anyway. And I was not wearing a prom dress. I was wearing a really beautiful vintage dress, prom dress. Thank you, Coyote.
So yeah, so I mean, so what like did was Larry involved like and Michael and John, like I mean were in terms of like the organization and stuff and like getting people organized and like setting up
No,
also
not so
photography.
much.
And
I
what were
had
your
to
specialties?
pull the hotline out of Michael's hands. He was involved with that, with the hotline. This is before the internet, right? The only
Mhm.
thing we had was like cell phones were really, not cell phones, answering machines were really the rage back then. That was the way you could leave a message and get it picked up later. So he had expandable um, mailboxes on ABC Communications, uh, and he managed that. And he gave that to me, and I managed it. And so basically, somebody would call in and say, I need a ride, or I want to buy a ticket, or I would expand and contract these boxes. And then when I get them on the phone, I'd say, hey, what are you doing out there? And they say, well, like, well, I'm going to do a camp where it's all about everybody's birthday every day. And I said, oh, this sounds like a theme camp. Do you want me to place you? And so I leveraged that opportunity to start to push some of the things that I thought were important. Like we don't want stores lining our streets, of course, like we have in the default world, but why not these wonderful camps that are doing fun things for everybody? Um, so Larry was always the visionary. He was always the big thinker. John always wanted to get the cool shit out there. He'd find all the cool artists and he'd get all the heavy equipment and he'd make sure that the propane tanks got out there and the cool art got out there. He was really good at that. Michael, well, he started the Rangers in 1991. By 1992, he gave it to Joe Fenton to run, Bogman. So he was sort of a creator of ideas that would manifest. But um, I ran a lot of that stuff. I ran center camp since 1994. What does that mean? It means someone finally handed me a radio and I would try to keep track of people and know where they were. So if something happened, that I would know and be able to communicate information to others. And so Marion came on in 1997, essentially, and she's
Yeah.
running outward communications.
Hmm.
Crimson was there from the same time I was there, and she started recruiting artists and performers for a main stage. We had a stage, and she would have artists. She would scout artists in San Francisco and have them come out to Burning Man and perform. So she was doing that from I think like 1994 on.
Hmm.
Um, and then we got rid of the stage after
Yeah.
1996 was our last year. Moved the
Yeah.
stage to
I don't
that.
know, 96 was my first year. That's why like we talking about like something like with the V and I was like, oh, I remember that. And like I remember there being a stage,
Yeah,
but definitely like Burning Man's had a number of inflection points. And so like 96, 97, two
huge.
very kind of important years. Like so 96, like when was that the first death? Was it
We never
Fury?
had a death.
Or well,
Well,
he was on the way. It
not
was at
during our
the event.
event. Michael Fury met his end
Yeah.
the day before our gates opened, the night before our gates opened.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was 1996. Yeah.
And then I think there was like that's not when John Law kind of bowed out too. 'Cause I guess for him
That's
it
when
was
John Law quit. I quit with John Law. We both quit at the same time. I just couldn't fathom it because I thought Burning Man was about the anarchy and the craziness and the fun and all the things that John was bringing out. And I just thought that's what Burning Man was. And then
Mhm.
Larry convinced me that it's not about all the cool things that were out going on out there and the anarchy. It's about the people you would trust to do that kind of thing with. It's
Mm.
really about community. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God, you're right.
Yeah.
So he and I got on the phone after I had like a mental breakdown after 1996. That was too much for me. Um, and we talked about how we would make it a pedestrian and bicycle city, not a driving city, that we would make a formal city grid and we would push the art out into the open playa so it could actually be burnt safely and the city grid would provide actual locations for people if they had a medical emergency or something that went wrong with them.
Mm.
They could say, I'm at the corner of such and such and such and such. And when he and I talked all that stuff through, I decided to come back. And that's when I started building more infrastructure, building a pond placement,
Mhm.
creating information resources,
Yeah.
and the radio station started about then too. Carmen Mauk uh, ran it for me, but I I procured the equipment and etc.
Yeah. She's living in Maui right now.
What's that?
Carmen? She lives in Maui now. Yeah, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can talk to
Yeah,
her.
I heard that. Yeah, that's cool.
Mhm. So then that kind of brings us to like 97 when it's like you guys couldn't was it you couldn't get the permit for the Black Rock Desert, but so they
Yeah,
can do
no, too much had
Hualapai.
gone down and they refused to permit us.
Yeah.
The
And
government
then
refused to
there was
permit
the
us.
whole deal with like the sheriff and like he seized the money from the
Yep.
gate,
Yep.
right? And then so
Robbed us blind. You'd pay your money to the officer with the gun and the bulletproof vest on in one window and pick up your ticket from, the nice long-haired hippie at the next window. That's what happened. They took our money.
yeah. So well what happened between that like 97 and 98? Because I think that was another kind of almost inflection point because it's like that was kind of
Well,
I was uncertain if Burning Man was gonna happen after that, right?
yes, we thought we would didn't have enough money, and we thought we were goners because they'd stolen all our money, and we weren't really an entity yet. So in 1997, we became an entity. We started our nonprofit, our for-profit Black Rock City LLC, intentionally called Black Rock City LLC and not Burning Man because we didn't want people knowing who we were. Essentially, we had a bad rap,
Hmm.
so we just went by another name. Um, but we found that our community was loyal. We got some amazing donations. Larry was standing on the hay bale pleading for money in 1997 as people left.
I remember that because I remember it was like if you, it was something like if you give us $500, you get a ticket for
Yeah,
life. And I
yeah,
remember like looking at like pulling my empty pockets out and being like, I wish I had $500. And
yeah,
now it's like my friend Curtis Coleman, like he was one of the people who did get it, and he was like, oh yeah, I still get a ticket every year. I don't go, but like still, I was like, oh man.
yeah. Yeah, so I think we had about 25 people who did that, and we still have a few of them left. Um, and this one wonderful man walked up to me, this really short-haired, tall, straight-cut looking man, and handed me a check for $20,000.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, all I want from this is to meet Larry. I was like, no problem. Larry, come over here. Larry just jumped off from the hay bale. And we were walking over towards like the only building we had out there. And I said, Larry, I'd like to introduce you to what's your name? His name was Dan. And he shook Larry's hand and he gave us $20,000. So the next year,
Oh,
so this is now 1998, we were able to make it happen. We knew at this point, if we didn't do it, people would show up anyway. And there was momentum, and we had learned a lot, and I was full of ideas, and placement was a thing. So I was building a team of placers to come to my house. Of course, I had my first computer in 1997. I didn't know what I was doing with computers, and I had this little house, and I invited some people over that I didn't know well, but I knew were would be good at this kind of work. And I get this phone call from this guy, and he says, "Oh, hi. I met you at Burning Man, and I thought you were cool, and I want to volunteer." I was like, "Great, you want to come over tonight?" And he said, "Sure, I'll come over tonight." And so he came over and he helped me place. And then we went to the playa, um, and that was the year that the big, huge temporal decomposition, I think was the name of it.
The ice cube with the clocks.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ice ball.
Yeah.
And
Ice ball.
he just pulled the fiberglass casing off of it, and it was lying on the ground and it was dark. And we were kind of tripping as we went through center camp, and we tripped over the the fiberglass, and I heard this tink 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 sound. And I knew it was a plastic laminate. I just like I could tell by the sound of it, it was a plastic laminate, which is what we gave to our 500 and above donors as a recognition, like you are a donor, here's your laminate.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, he's one of our donors. And I was like, so Dan.
What
And
you
he's like,
doing?
yeah, I'm the person who gave you $20,000. Don't tell anybody. And he worked on my team for like another 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And he was like number seven at some big, huge tech startup. And he's still in touch with us. And yeah, it's a good story, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I knew the sound of that. I was like, that's one of our tech donors. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So by 1998, we were solid. And, we went from 1997 was 9,000 people, and 1998 was like 10,000 people. So basically the same size.
Mm.
And the next year we went from 10 to 20. And
Yeah.
that was the hardest year on me because I had created all the infrastructure, right? And all the infrastructure was new. Greeters was brand new. Earth Guardians was brand new. Placement was brand new. Lamplighters had been around, but nobody grew it. Steve Mabia handed me lamplighters, or Larry handed me lamplighters in like 20, 19, I don't know, 1990, whatever, right in there, 1997,
Mhm.
1998. I got it. All this stuff was brand new, and we'd gone from 10,000 people to 20,000 people. So it was a very stressful year, but it worked out fine. 1998 was a great year. It was fine.
Yeah. And then smash cut to now, all these years later. You
I know it's hard to know, like simple
Well,
beginnings, right? Like
yeah.
people
Well, I
probably
think it's
just,
kind of hard for people to understand because like now everything is, after I mean, it's gonna be next year, what, 40 years? It's like
yeah, it's
since
getting
like
close to 40, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe what, 36 since like on the playa or something. But like yeah, I think that, like people just kind of showing up now, it's like, oh, like it's like clockwork. Like
That's the
everything.
way you do it.
Like, yeah, that's how it
This is
is.
the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. All right. Well, let's get to our second question. Your background. So
That
what
was just one question.
that was the first question. I mean, I'm sure we could go on. We could have like a multi-part series, but for our listeners, like, yeah. So where'd you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in New Jersey, northern Jersey,
Yeah.
and I was
Well, funny because
two.
I grew up in northern New Jersey. I grew up in
I
like,
think we've had this conversation before. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Englewood, which is like near the George Washington Bridge.
Yeah, I grew up in Montclair, which is
Oh,
near the Lincoln Tunnel.
yeah, 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 yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jersey. I was happy to get out of there.
Yeah. I
I
got my
mean,
drive from being in Jersey. I could
yeah.
get something done because I lived in Jersey.
Yeah.
And my mouth like a sailor from being
Oh
in Jersey.
yeah. Oh yeah. But so what made you go out to San Francisco? Like, did you?
So I'll try to make it as short as possible. I went to a high school of performing arts. I spent a lot of time on the stage, but I also spent a lot of time designing sets and doing everything I possibly could with regard to putting on shows. And then when I graduated from high school, I found it too scary to go to college, so I went to a very small art school in Aix-en-Provence, France, for
Wow.
9 months, and I learned how to paint oil paints. And I met my best friend and my mentor because she was all of 21 while I was 17. She was so worldly and
Hmm.
wise. And she convinced me to apply to school to Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, while I was in France. And I got in and I went to art school there. And then meanwhile, she had moved to California with her boyfriend who started cheating on her. And I thought he was a jerk. So I came out to support her at 21 years old and I never went back. And it took me another, I don't know, more than 10 years to find the Cacophany Society, but I was always in artistic communities of some sort or another.
So you were moved out to San Francisco, what, like in the early 80s, something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think 81. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I moved to the East Bay first and I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute where I got clairvoyance training,
Oh.
which is interesting because it was a really wonderful institution, and anybody
Mhm.
listening to this who's been there will agree with me. It's folded and its roots have taken off into other areas, but it was a nexus point and a really special place for a period of time, and that was in Berkeley. Um,
That's still around?
no, just remnants of it, parts of it. Like I'll hear people that are doing this training or that training. I'm like, oh yeah, that's from the Berkeley Psychic Institute. Louis Bosswork, Boss Louis Bosswork, I believe was his name, was a lot like Larry. He was charismatic in his own strange way. Larry was charismatic in his own strange way. And he was really the force behind things. And when he passed away, everything kind of fell apart. What Larry did that's different is Larry would name the thing, and everyone in the room would go, "Yeah, that's the thing. That's right." And we could use it as a foundational building block. So we could build from this to that to that to this to this to that and then let things grow. Lewis did not have that quality. And when he died, everything fell apart. But when Larry passed away, he'd created a foundation that was strong enough by his talent of being able to name the thing.
So
And so
Larry
that's
wouldn't
what
tell you like how to do it. Like he would just describe like what it was and
oh, Larry was terrible at doing anything.
yeah, so it followed like you.
Like I did all like we all did it all around him. I did like he would come up with the idea and I'd see it and I would manifest it, and not so much Michael. John quit early. Crimson manifested a lot. Marion manifested a lot, but Larry and I kind of did the city more
Mhm.
than the others. But yeah, I was a manifester. He was a creator, but he couldn't do anything. He could hardly tie his shoelaces. Literally, he tells a story, or when he was alive, he tells a story how he couldn't remember how to tie a bow. So he would trick his friends into tying his shoelaces for him.
What? Like into adulthood, or is this like kind of
No,
childhood
as a
thing?
child, not into adulthood, as a child. But like that's the kind of person he was. Like he could see the vision, he couldn't necessarily do it.
Uh, I'm envisioning a bow on my shoes.
Don't you know how to do one of those? Didn't your mom teach you? Here,
Like, I
here,
bet you're
I
good
know
at that.
mine.
You know, let me tell you a story about bows and shoes. Like, oh, I want to make one right now. Really, show me.
Yes. I love Larry. He was such a character, such a good
Yeah,
egg.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's why, like Burning Man, like continues to this day, right? I mean, it's like he provided the inspiration, other people made it happen, and
Yeah.
now it's like we're all kind of evolving on. And then there's the whole like, excuse me, the regional network and Burning Man, like in the rest of the world.
Hmm. It's huge.
How much of that
That's
did you have to do with, or were you kind of more like Black Rock City like centered?
No, actually, in the early days, Marion and I were in it equally. In 1997, this guy named George Papp
He was my
from
first
Austin.
guest, actually. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I love George.
yeah.
In 1997, he said, I'm going to do this fundraiser because I need to know. I know you need the money because the cops just took all your money, and so he started the regional network, and then the gentleman from Canada did all of Canada for us. And so I was definitely there in the inception phase of it. Marion took it over for a long period of time. But at the same time, I was developing trainings for internal use, which meant volunteers, and we had very few staff members at the time, but for our volunteer network, which was like, not only how to use the technology that's new, because technology was becoming a thing in 1997, 1998. And so all these things like MailChimp, we had to be trained in all those things. But more importantly, like, how do we treat our volunteers? How do we treat each other? How do we communicate well? How do we solve problems together? How do we solve differences together? And I was creating all these trainings and learning from burners and learning from professionals in the field and bringing them and honing them into the Burning Man culture internally in the organization. And all of that fed into the regional network, and is very useful to this day, to people around the world because, the first thing a new regional when they do the first event, they always ask for two things. The first thing they ask for is, how do I build my volunteer base? And we've got that totally down. Like we have a manual, we've got training videos, we've got um, uh, courses you can take, we've got courses you can deliver and learn from yourself, all of that. And the second thing they ask for is, um, how do we get our ranger network up and running? And the Rangers have the best trainings in the whole wide world. So I was kind of doing that more of that kind of end of things, nurturing those kinds of ends of things, um, while Marion was really developing the regional network. You mentioned Bex. Of course, Bex was our first person out on the road. Um, and I've spoken to her recently. She's happy with her beautiful little son in New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Anyway, it's nice that this community is around and we can still communicate and still love each other.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, I think we finally got into our last question. So what is the impact of Burning Man or the influence of Burning Man on your life?
In my life.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I mean, so how much of your life has been tied up in all this? I mean, since God, I mean, when I mean, it might even be before you went to Black Rock Desert, right? I mean, even just like living in 1907 Golden Gate. I mean,
yeah, and I would even say before that,
yeah.
I'd say like the first time I ever took a step off the cliff and just did a free fall, which is what doing Burning Man was like. Like you had no idea where you were going. And of course, it was volunteer. So wasn't like I was losing money at it or not able to feed myself or pay my rent because I was
Mhm.
volunteering. I basically worked all day to earn a living and then I worked all night to do Burning Man. Um, but the first time I took a step off that cliff was when I was 17 and I went to France without knowing how to speak the language and knowing where I was going. So I guess I've always been a risk taker. I'm not afraid of taking risks. I'm a fairly good judgment of personalities and opportunities. Um, so I'm not one to turn down a good opportunity if it comes at me. So that served me well. I think a lot of people would have just walked away and not put as much into it as I did just because I'm hardwired that way.
Mhm.
But I met my husband at Burning Man. I planned my pregnancy for my daughter around Burning Man. I was my second trimester, which means you feel like you're in heaven. When I was running the city back in 2002,
Wow.
and my daughter was born, or 2003, my daughter was born later that year. My daughter has come to the office with me since she was 1 month old because she was ready. She was ready to be in a cradle by my desk. She stayed in the office with me until she went to kindergarten because we got an office for her and she had a nanny come in. So I mean, I want to say, like, I feel like out of all the founders, I'm the least, I identify who I am the least amount with Burning Man. I really like to think of myself as an artist and an organizer and a mother and a wife and um, a lover of art, and Burning Man's somewhere down that list.
Mhm.
But when I think about it really hard, maybe that's not so true. Um, it certainly has been my life work. And my daughter's now 21. She takes off a semester from college every year to come to Burning Man. She helps
Oh,
me run my
really?
camp. I have my own camp, and she comes and helps me run my camp.
So
And
she's basically Burning Man has just been her entire life. I mean, because it's funny when you talk to Coyote, it was like we did the math and I was like, really, it's like half of your life. And so now what you're telling me, I'm like, that's probably more than half of your life. And it's like, in your daughter, I'm like, well, that's 100%.
100%. It's
Yeah.
like I can't believe what she knows. Like she takes, like I'll bring somebody in. So often what I do when I have speaking engagements and I go around the world and I meet people who should come to Burning Man. Like they're doing Burning Man. Like I don't think Burning Man is the event in the desert. I think Burning Man is the way we behave with each other and the way we
Mhm.
act and the way we treat each other. And so like I meet a burner who doesn't know that they're a burner and I bring them to Burning Man. And my daughter takes them out and introduces them to the city. And I'm just blown away by what she knows. I never taught her that stuff. Like, how
Does
does she
she
know all
may?
this stuff? Because she grew up with it. She just grew up with it.
Well, it's almost kind of like, it just reminded of the Cacophany Society tagline. It's like you may already be a member.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So another thing, let's see, when we spoke last time, you spoke of transformational experience,
Hmm.
and you're like four pillars of that.
Yeah. So I don't believe you have to come to Burning Man to have a transformational experience. I think Burning Man's the perfect place to do that. If you want to, you don't have to. It's a choice. But many people do it, whether they want to or not. They find themselves on that track. And so I analyzed it and I speak about it regularly now. And I've analyzed it to to be four pillars, as you mentioned. The first one is a place where you feel safe. And I don't mean like Burning Man's not necessarily a safe place, but you personally feel safe. And that's whatever it is for you. Like maybe it
Mhm.
means not being videoed. Maybe it means um, being in a warm environment. Maybe it means um, being allowed to do anything you want to and not have being judged by it. Whatever safe is for you, Burning Man can provide a very safe environment for people that they've never experienced before. Or maybe they have once or twice, but they can even create it for themselves at Burning Man. Second thing is that you do meaningful work. What do I mean by meaningful work? I mean work that you don't get paid for. Like, sure, maybe few of us get paid for the stuff we find really meaningful. We get paid for it, and that's great. It's great if you can combine the two. But what I mean is something that fills your soul, something that when you come home at the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, that was so worth it. I'm so happy I spent my day like that today. Like it just it's meaningful. It fills you. It fills up your cup.
Mhm.
The third thing is getting pushed out of your comfort zone. And I mean really truly. I don't mean just like you walked in the rain. I mean, like maybe you had a breakdown, or maybe hyperventilated, or maybe you just felt so insecure, like I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough. Everybody around me is so much more cool than me. Or maybe it's just a dust storm and not being able to see your hand in front of your face, but being pushed to your edge. So you find out where your edge is.
Is it kind
Like,
of also like thinking outside of the box, or just like kind of like getting rid of your constraints, because most of us kind of live like, well, I couldn't do that.
right. Right. Well, what if you could do that? What if you tried to do that?
Yeah.
Well, how hard would it be for you to try to do that? Right. All of those things. And Lord knows everybody who goes to Burning Man, they have their highs and they have their lows. You know,
Oh
it's
yeah.
not more than once I've had a grown man cry on my shoulder. Um, so being pushed to your edge and finding out what your edge is, because that's part of who you are, right? Where is
Mhm.
your edge? And then the last one is grounding all of that stuff in ritual and ceremony. Of course, the burning of the man is the ultimate ritual and ceremony that most people think of. But what other rituals and ceremonies are there out there? They're they're abundant everywhere around us in Black Rock City, and at regional events. And frankly, you can find these kinds of things by getting cancer or being in a war zone. Like these are also things that will show you your edge and take you to your limit, and you'll find ritual and ceremony to ground you and get you through it. So it doesn't have to be a positive thing like Burning Man. It could be a negative things. This can happen anywhere. Transformational experiences can happen anywhere, but Burning Man is a machine. It's a machine that's set up to do that for you if you want to take that ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's kind of like when I don't know, sometimes I have interesting like debates with people, especially like a lot of like newer burners. They look at the 10 principles and it I don't know. Sometimes I think people kind of treat it almost like as like a dogma, you know. And I'm like, no, no, no. It's more of like a recipe. Like I look at it as kind of like a recipe that converts strangers into like really close friends, if not relatives. You know, it's like it's not the end goal in itself. It's like it's a way to get there. And what the end goal is, it's like that's not what the 10 principles describes.
Right. So the 10 principles are a step beyond the transformational experience. Once you've kind of gone through the transformational experience, which you don't have to come to Burning Man to get, and then you can apply the 10 principles as a recipe. And it's different in different cultures, right? Like when I went to South Africa, when I'm cleaning up all my moop, I'm taking somebody's job away from them.
Really?
That's how they make their money, is cleaning up other people's moop. And
Oh,
I just different way to think about things, right? Like it's just everything's relative and everything's in balance, and it'll find its own balance in whatever environment you're in.
no. No. Well, I think that's the three questions. Any final words or any plugs you want to plug? I mean, do you? Well, one thing I kept thinking was like, what does like retirement look like to you? I mean, will you just kind of keep doing this as long as you can, or do you see a point where you're just kind of like, I want to hand this off and I want to
Oh,
see?
I'm ready. I'm so ready to hand it off. I'm waiting for the right moment, and the right moment is upon me. It'll happen anytime now.
Uh,
Um, I really believe that we're doing this whole organization a disservice, this whole network of human beings a disservice by not letting the younger people step up and take it over. And I am fully committed to it. I've already given away my job 3 or 4 times. I keep giving it away. And I'm ready to give this one away too. My husband just retired from his career. And I'm living with my 94-year-old mother, and I'm living with my 21-year-old daughter. We all have our little cottages that are separate from each other, but I'm doing the full circle thing here, and I'm relishing these moments. Um, and I believe that Burning Man is almost set up to be exactly where it should be. The business, I say the business entity. What like some people talk to me like, sure, I did HR, and I talked to our legal team, and I I worry about people's pensions and whether their health care is good enough. But that's just one teeny weeny little speck of this huge community that we've created. And to me, that's Burning Man, not the business entity that I have been engaged in for the last 10 or so years. Because Marion Goodell and I have been running the organization. I stepped out about 2 years ago now from running or meaning the legal and the HR and the compensation and the hiring and firing and
mm,
all that stuff. And like that's not Burning Man to me. Um, so I'll never leave Burning Man. It'll always be my community and my family. But yeah, I'm ready to give it to the next generation. I'm ready to move on, and I look forward to it. I think it's the most healthy thing we could be doing right now is letting it go. Somebody in my position as a founder.
yeah. But you, like you said, you'll always kind of keep a toe in, and you'll always come back.
Well, I hope to always go to Burning Man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
And maybe I'll come back to Hawaii and visit you again.
Oh, definitely.
You,
Well, it's kind of for many years ago. I think when it was 98 or something. Like for me, when people say, "What's Burning Man all about?" It's just like, I mean, how many participants have there been? Like a million or something over the years. Like if it depends on how you count it. You know, it's like there's probably like a million different reasons or things people to get out of it. You know,
yeah,
but for me, it was always something what I called the connection. You know, and so that's kind of like this part of the genesis of this whole project I'm doing too. You know, like I think people kind of come for the art, they come for the spectacle, but then if they stay, and some people don't stay, but if they stay, it's for the community.
They find their people.
And yeah, and it's what I call the connection, the community. Even like we're saying, like Larry was talking about, I think that's the magic. We're talking about the 10 principles. Like it converts like complete random strangers into almost family.
Well, jerks into nice people.
Yeah. That's some crazy magic there. All right. Well, I think we're coming up on the hour and 15, which is usually about where we cut out. But thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, and thank you for like the second time going around. At least we don't have the
I'm so glad we did it again. I'm so glad.
yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. Love to your family.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this show, please subscribe, rate, and review it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. The more reviews the show has, the more likely it will even appear in search results. Also, please tell a friend and share this show with anyone that you think might like it. Word of mouth reaches quite far, especially in the Burning Man community. If you would like to contact us, please send an email to shadowofthemanpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow Shadow of the Man on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, and YouTube. The links for all of these are available at shadowoftheman.com. Feel free to use any of these social media accounts to provide any feedback you might have. Your thoughts on the show are greatly appreciated. Thank you, and see you soon for a new episode of The Shadow of the Man.
Thank you for listening to this latest show. We have to make another one, so gotta go. Don't worry, for next month we already have one in the can. Very soon you'll be listening to a new Shadow of the Man.